It's unfortunate that we have to discuss this issue, especially now in the age of advanced technology, where we know and can observe how two cells, a sperm and an ovum, can fuse to form an embryo, which then grows over 9 months to form a fully functional human body. So the key question becomes, when does life begin? Is it at birth? Or is it at the 25th week of a baby's life, when the baby is able to survive on its own outside of its mother's womb? Or is it at conception? In science, we are asked to recognize single-celled organisms as life, even when these cells are living inside or are dependent on the host's life. And the reason we view these cells as a separate form of life is because we know and can prove beyond any reasonable doubt that they have a completely different DNA from the host cell. So, if bacteria living inside a human being can be considered a separate life, why then is it that when it comes to recognizing the life of an embryo, which is a unique set of cells with a different DNA, we somehow want to claim that that is not life? The timeline above shows that the same human being with the same DNA can develop from an embryo to a fully functional human being. The only difference is the different stages of development. The fact is, you cannot have death unless you have a living being, or what we will term life. You cannot have an adult without having an adolescent, or an adolescent without having a child, or you cannot have a child without having a fetus, or an embryo, or conception. It's because of this link that we cannot say life starts anywhere in the middle. For the same reason, we do not say a life with rights only exists after you become an adult, or only after you stop being an infant. We understand that even though an infant is still dependent on its parent, it's still a life unique to itself with unalienable rights, to which if anybody took those rights, we will all go in uproar, protesting and calling it murder. The truth is, one cannot exist without the other. So, if an adult is life, then the adolescent is also life. The child is life. The infant, the fetus, the embryo, all these things are life. So why would we consider an adult as life and not equally accord a fetus and an embryo the same rights, when in fact they're the same person with the same unique set of cells, with the same DNA, only that one is more developed than the other? It's for a fact that during the development of these sets of cells, they will be dependent on another life, in this case the mother or the father, at different stages, to different degrees, at least until adulthood. But just because they're dependent, whether as an adult or a child or an infant, no one says that they are any less of a life or a human being because they are dependent on their parents. So why then will the other stages of human development, specifically the fetus and embryo, that are dependent on the mother, be considered less of a life, or even in some cases not a life at all? Without a doubt, the link to human life starts at the point of conception. Without conception, there is no separate human life with a unique identity or DNA. And once conception takes place, if these cells are left to develop, they will develop to a fully developed human being. If we break the link of life and say life begins at any point other than at conception, we are not being realistic or truthful. We can say what we want, so we can allow ourselves to legally kill another life. But so we know, it is a separate life with its own set of DNA, whether it's one cell, two cells, 100 cells, or 1,000,000,000,000 cells in an adult human being. They are the same human being. Who are we to choose what life exists and what life doesn't? We need to honor God by honoring life.